anyone watching at home. I'm here with Los Angeles Angels analyst Taylor Blake Ward. He's covered the Angels for about 10 years now for Baseball America and the Sporting Tribune, to name a few. And he is also a published author. Taylor, thank you so much for joining me today.
Absolutely. Pleasure's mine.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a lot of players to talk about today, but the first guy I want to bring up is this 18-year-old. His name's Nelson Rada. He's an outfielder. He was recently brought up to Rocket City despite not playing in high A baseball. What kind of player is he? And it's kind of an aggressive assignment for him, just for him not playing in high A ball. Were you kind of surprised by this aggressive assignment for him?
Um, Within reason, I think I was surprised that this is a very advanced teenager. The upside is interesting because he has the ability to hit, he has the ability to field, he has the ability to steal bases. I don't know if he's necessarily the fastest runner in the world, but he does have the ability to steal bases at a high clip. And it's just his body prototype doesn't necessarily suggest that he's going to grow into a five-tool player on the power sense, but he does have a little bit of sneaky pop in there, and I think the tools and the advanced skill set is what really sets him apart from others that would be 18-year-olds that are going to Double A, because we don't see it a lot. I think with the Angels, I know Joe Adell was assigned there as a 19-year-old, didn't play till he was 20 to start a season, and I think Mike Trout was the last guy before that was actually a teenager, and he
Right.
was 19 years old as well during that time. So this is a very interesting baseball player, potential to be an impact player at the major league level. I think depending on what he does at the end of this year, the middle of this year, I think you could argue that he may be a top 100 prospect, depending on what he does. But I think it's someone you have to consider the age, you have to consider the talent and who he's facing, because even Rocket City has guys that are 25 plus years old, right? So you
Mm-hmm.
figure a guy that's 7 years older than he is has 7 more years baseball experience at minimum than he does. It's going to be very interesting to see what he brings to the table. But very exciting player. I think you're going to love his defense in the center field. He's a very good center fielder. He's going to hit for a high clip of contact, doesn't chase a lot. Just a very well suited, well rounded baseball player that I think Rocket City is really going to enjoy him.
Absolutely. And yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing him play. I recently moved to Huntsville, so I haven't been to a Trash Pandas game yet, but I'm definitely excited to watch him play. And another guy I'm interested in seeing, Aurel Vera. He's a shortstop. He was recently given $2 million as an international signing from Venezuela, but he's been kind of slow to develop. What do you think has kind of held him back from making that next jump or that next step? And is it kind of too soon to hit the panic button for him?
I think we're right in the range. The bat has just not progressed the way that it was anticipated to progress. And, glove wise, he looks good at shortstop, but he's going to be much more suited at third base. The arm is going to play there. Footwork wise and body wise, he's gone through some physical changes that have kind of tampered with him a little bit. He gained a lot of weight during COVID because he signed right before COVID. And then they trimmed him back down. So he's gone through some, physical changes that a lot of us don't go through, and not the prototype baseball physical change where you have to gain 20, 30 pounds of muscle after you sign. It wasn't necessarily muscle. It might have been a little bit of cheeseburgers kind of thing. So,
Right.
his bat just hasn't progressed. His body is back where they want it. Definitely not time to surrender on him, but definitely time to start saying, hey, it's time to pick things up. And more than anything, I think it's swing decisions. He has a good idea of what he's doing at the plate. He does recognize balls and strikes, but I think his swing decisions, kind of that's the big point that I think has to start turning a corner to really show that he could be more than a bench player by any means, because this is the guy that has a big tool set, very tools up player, has power, has shown in the past he has the ability to hit, looks the part of a really good defender in the infield on the dirt. Maybe not the fastest guy in the world, but someone that has those tools that you want to see him translate. but he has to start turning that page very quickly.
Absolutely. And now I want to move over to the mound a little bit. We got pitchers Caden Dana, and Ben Joyce. Ben Joyce, he's back in Rocket City. Were you surprised he wasn't starting in AAA this season? And I believe he could potentially be the Angels closer moving forward in the future. Do you think that?
Well, I think the Angels have shown that they like the development, um, the environment of the development in Alabama as opposed to Utah. Utah can be, with the elevation, especially for pitchers, you could go out there and run a 5 or a 6 or a 7 ERA and actually be pitching reasonably well just because the ball travels so well there. And especially if you're
Right.
making contact on something that's 102 miles per hour, it's going to leave just as fast as it came in. So I think they wanted to. I think Rocket City is going to be kind of a little bit of an isolated place when it comes to younger development players in more of a development sense than a depth sense. I was a little bit surprised he didn't make the opening day roster with the Angels.
Right.
He had some lapses early in spring that he corrected, and the breaking ball took a step forward that kind of got him out of jams, and he didn't have to rely on 102 miles per hour or more to get out of jams. Mentally, I'd like to see him take that step forward. I want to see him take that step forward into what would be a high leverage or a closing role. I don't know what's missing. And if you talk to him, it doesn't seem like there's anything mentally missing, but you're looking for that next step to take him into that high leverage role where he can handle scenarios of the ninth inning or whatever the high leverage spot is late in games at the major league level. And I think Rocket City would be a great place for that. You can put him into different situations and teach him how to take that on. And yeah, I mean, the stuff is it's Lollapalooza. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there are not a lot of guys in the world that throw as hard as he does, and it's a handful or less that are capable of what he's capable of doing on a baseball field. So yeah, I feel like he might be a quick trip to Rocket City, depending on what happens with the Angels bullpen, and I think he is going to be one of the first few that comes up if they need another reliever. But yeah, definitely one of those guys that I definitely be excited about him being down there because it's something that you don't get to see on a baseball field with regularity by any means. And who knows, maybe he might set a pitch record out of nowhere,
Right.
fastest pitch ever recorded. He's in that range. He's capable of doing that.
Absolutely. And another flamethrower, Jack Kachanowicz. I believe he's a big fella. I believe he's like 6'7", 225. Um, Obviously, he can throw hard. I think he hits in the upper 90s. But so far, his big league performance, or not big league, but professional baseball performance, has been kind of underwhelming. What's kind of held him back from taking off, and would he be better off transitioning to more of a bullpen role?
I don't think so. He went through a really unique year last year where developmentally they lowered his arm slot and they added a new pitch. It was a two seamer as opposed to a standard four seamer. And it created more separation between his changeup and his fastball. And his breaking ball actually improved with it as well. So his arsenal as a whole improved. The early start of his career, he was kind of he had the changeup in the fastball. The fastball didn't have the velocity or life that it does now, and the separation between the changeup and the fastball wasn't as big. And the curveball became very predictable. And so he finally got rid of the curveball, added the slider a little bit more heavy. And I think it's just adjusting to the nature. He throws a lot of strikes. Now it's just finding out, can we get those to be quality strikes? Because you start throwing the ball in the zone, it has a good chance of getting hit. So he has to kind of live a little bit more on the edges. Usually we tell guys to move off or move in from the edges. He has to move off of the edges a little bit. Um, so I think more so it's just throwing more quality strikes and finding that zone that really equates to that two seam slider break and
Mm.
counter the tunnels together. And I think for him, it may be a confidence thing, but yeah, definitely a guy that has the arsenal to play at the major league level today. It's just getting that command down, getting the sense of the zone a little bit more, and how to utilize it, and maybe get a little bit more swing and miss. He hasn't been as big swing and miss, but a big ground ball pitcher. And yeah, I mean, a guy that, sitting 95, 96 and can touch 98, 99 with ease. He's a very interesting arm that the Angels are very excited about.
Absolutely. Are there any like lower level prospects that comes to mind when you think of the Angels farm system as a whole that could make their way up to Rocket City within the next few months?
Next few months, yeah, I think you look immediately to High A, right, and Tri City.
Hmm.
They have a pretty premier shortstop prospect in Denzer Guzman. We call him Zorro, the Fox. He's a
Okay.
very very gifted defender at shortstop. Has all the tools to definitely be a major league shortstop in the future, and an everyday kind of guy. The bat does have to progress a little bit. He really struggles with breaking stuff, especially from right-handed pitchers. He's a right-handed batter, so pitches that break away from him, he does struggle with. But I think once he figures that out, you've got a very special everyday kind of player that could be up quickly. Um, looking at the pitching staff, the one guy that I think is very interesting, and we have to monitor, similar to a Caden Dana situation, is
Yeah.
Barrett Kent. Now he's going to start here in California in San Bernardino with Loway Inland Empire,
Yeah.
but I think he showed what he could do at the end of last year after the draft. I think Caden only started like 3 games in San Bernardino before they moved him up to Tri A or Tri City.
Tri City. Right.
And I think Barrett's going to be on a similar path. I think if he shows what he's capable of very early in the season, it's going to be a quick stint here in San Bernardino, and then you move him up to Washington and Tri City. And if they don't have him on an innings cap, kind of the way they did with Caden last year, I think he is a guy that you could see at the end of the season. And I know that there are a lot of people that actually like Barrett Kemp more than they like Caden Dana. That's not saying they don't like Caden Dana, but I think it
Hmm.
speaks to the volume of the upside of someone like Barrett Kent. So those are 2 guys I would definitely monitor: Denzer Guzman and Barrett Kent.
Okay. Noted. Compared to other teams, like you mentioned, the Salt Lake Bees, the 66ers, Tri City, compared to those other teams, where would you rank the Rocket City roster right now?
I think it's probably the most exciting, and I apologize. I keep looking this way,
All right.
but because you're on my camera that way, so I apologize. I, yeah, I
All
think
good.
when you look at it, you look at Ben Joyce, you look at Caden Dana,
Hmm.
Nelson Rada, Kyron Paris. Those are just guys that pop off the top of my mind. But you've got the number one prospect, regardless of if your opinion is that it's Caden Dana or Nelson Rada. So you've got the 1-2 easy, and it doesn't matter what order you put them in. You have the top prospect for the organization and the second best prospect of the organization. And in my opinion, I think Kyron Paris is definitely a
Hmm.
top 5 prospect of this organization. When I did the winter rankings for Baseball America, Kyron Paris fell in right behind those 2. Nolan Shonwell was number 1, but Nolan Shonwell graduated first game of the season for the Angels. So, you might have the 3 best prospects in the system, and if you include Ben Joyce, I think you might have the 4 best prospects in the system overall. So it's a very exciting group. Jack Kahanowitz, you mentioned him as a big
Yeah.
one. Victor Medeiros, I think, is one that kind of goes under the radar a little bit, but definitely someone that would be considered a top 10 prospect in this organization. I think Rocket City definitely has the most exciting roster of any of the affiliates, undeniably. These are guys that you're going to see in the major leagues within the next 2 years with ease. And if
Wow.
not next 2 years, these are guys you're going to see up this year with the Angels, undeniably. Guys like Ben Joyce,
Hmm.
guys like Victor Medeiros, guys like Jack Kahanowitz, guys like Kyron Paris. These are all guys that are, someone underperforming or an injury away from being major leaguers in immediate sense, could be tomorrow kind of thing. So you have major league players on that roster, and that's always going to be really exciting. And not just major league players, but impactful major league players as well.
Well, that's very exciting. It gives us all a reason to go out to the games, and the thought that these guys that we're watching maybe this month could be in an Angels uniform, a big league uniform, within the next few months, maybe even the next few weeks. It's super exciting. You mentioned Kyron Paris, the shortstop here. He's obviously beginning the season here. He gets very high marks for his speed. What are the Angels planning to use basically Kyron Harris for? Like what is the Angels' hope for him?
I mean, you mentioned it. He's got power, he's got speed, and if he can truly show that he can play shortstop at a high clip, Zach Neto kind of has that locked down for the next few years with the Angels, but it's never a bad thing having multiple shortstops and you can move them over to second base.
Yeah.
But I think it's just cutting down strikeouts. Cutting down the swing and miss. He knows how to get on base. It's not an issue of walking more or anything like that. It's just cutting down the chase and the swing and miss a little bit. But you look at two tools that are very important, especially for that position, power and speed and the ability to get on base. They think that he, has a chance to be an everyday kind of second baseman, middle infielder. And I think that they have that skill set.
Mm.
His swing needs a little bit of a step forward, just a small step forward. And we're talking about, a step forward to becoming a full-time major leaguer, not something where he has to take a step forward to be a full-time shortstop at Rocket City. But yeah, this is a guy that the Angels are very excited about, have been for a while. Second round pick from 2019, I want to say, I believe is the year he was drafted. And, he's an internal guy for the Angels that they really enjoy. One of the nicest kids you can find. And last year, the Southern League had some issues with the baseball that really did challenge just about everybody between the pitchers and the hitters. And I think after that baseball altered to the original one, I think that is when Kyron Paris really showed what he's capable of doing at a regular clip, a consistent clip. And I think if he shows that consistency and he starts taking the steps forward, this is a guy that you're going to see in an Angels uniform for the next 5 years. Whatever role that may be, he may be a utility guy or a bench guy, but I think they plan on him maybe being their second baseman once Brandon Drury's gone.
Exciting. And I also want to talk about Zach Neto. He's kind of made a quick ascension through the minor league level. Were you kind of surprised how quickly he's been able to come up to AA?
Immensely.
Right.
I think, out of the draft, the high A assignment made a lot of sense to me. And then when he went to Rocket City after the draft, I said, yeah, that kind of makes sense. First rounder that is very advanced in particular skill sets, particularly his hitting and his defense. And the way he was able to keep up with the pace of the game at that level was very impressive. And last winter, not this one we just had, but the winter before, I sat there and I said, the Angels are missing a shortstop. Like, they do not have a real shortstop that is going to come in and compete with them. And once Zach Neto came, a month or two into the season, it altered my view of how the Angels were going to be. Now, injuries took place, and you miss so much time with Anthony Rendon and Mike Trout, and eventually Shohei Ohtani on the mound. It's going to really impact you, and they did. It showed. They won 73 games instead of making the playoffs. But I think Zach Neto really transformed the entire roster of the Angels overnight, and in a very quick and surprising fashion. It was so fast to see him go for, and the Angels have done it. We saw Reed Detmers, who went to Rocket City, Chase Silseth, who went to Rocket City, both the first players from their draft to make the majors. Zach Neto included, and Nolan Schanuel as well. But I think the advancement of the player, the skill set of the player, and how quick they are to it. And I think a little bit of necessity to a sense when it came to the Angels. But Zach has showed up, proven that he belongs as a Major League Baseball player, and I don't see him going back at any point. It doesn't look like he would ever go backwards, back to an assignment to the minor leagues, which is just really exciting. For shortstops are hard to find, and an everyday shortstop that's going to play there for 6 years is something that's really special. So Zach Neto, he impressed me before the draft, he impressed me after the draft, and he continues to impress me every time I see him.
Absolutely. Rocket City is quite a ways away from Anaheim. Obviously, some of our fans here might not be super familiar with the Angels organization as a whole, because it is so far away. Could you give us like an overall assessment of the Angels system as a whole? What are some of the strengths? What are some of the weaknesses?
Yeah, I mean, they aren't the Braves. I can tell you that. This has been an organization that has struggled with bringing internal players up for the better part of a decade now. Mike Trout. For a while, David Fletcher was maybe their best internal player. Jared Walsh and those guys. We saw what happened with them. So this is an organization that's been altering their game plan, and we saw it. We talk about Zach Neto going up to the majors with only I think 50 major or minor league games. Nolan Schanuel up there in 20 games, and within a month of the draft, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're very quick to the majors. They plan on taking these young guys and really establishing a full roster of internal players, and that all starts through the minors, and in particular Rocket City. Rocket City is a place where you're going to see major league talent across the entire field. Every player on a AA roster has the talent and skill set to become a major league player. And Rocket City, especially for the Angels, it can be. They've proven that they are not afraid to skip guys over AAA or use Rocket City as an immediate filler for their major league depth and major league assignments. So the Angels are a farm system that if you look at it with a broad scope, you think about Zach Neto, Nolan Schanuel, Chase Hill, Seth Reed Detmers. These guys could be prospect eligible for other teams, right? They may not be major leaguers at the time that the Angels had them as major leaguers and non-prospects. So if you look at the overall picture of the young group and the young core of the Angels, they actually do have a good farm system. When you look at it the way it is right now, with the way that we do rankings, it's not so much. You look at Rada, you look at Dana and Paris and Joyce, and after that, there's a pretty steep fall off of potential impact players. So this is something where the Angels are trying to develop, heavy focus on development, get these guys to not only become, tap into their tool set and become major leaguers, but become very well established major leaguers and impactful major leaguers. And I think most of that is going to start right there in Rocket City. It's going to start in San Bernardino and Washington with Tri-City and Arizona and the Dominican. One thing I will say, the international scouting department has done a remarkable job of finding talent at a reasonable price. And I think the international side of things is really where the Angels are going to blossom coming up here. But definitely something where Rocket City is going to be a place where you're seeing the movement, the ultimate change in a prospect to a Major League Baseball player and an established, impactful Major League Baseball player.
Well, I'm super excited about it. Obviously, it was an interesting offseason for the Angels. You lost Ohtani to the Dodgers, but you did sign Ron Washington, who I'm from the Atlanta area originally. I'm a huge Washington fan. I was always like, send them Wash, always saying that. So it's an interesting offseason. Do you see us, or do you see the Angels making at least getting over 500 this year? I believe it's been since 2015 since you guys have been 500. Do you think they could be 500 this year?
I'm in a waiting pattern on that one.
Okay.
This is very much it's a unique year. I think when you look at expectations every year for the last 7-8 years, on paper the Angels looked like a potential playoff team, and that included Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout, and you add in Anthony Rendon. I think this is the first year where expectations are that on paper this does not look like a playoff team. And I think to make the playoffs, you have to be above that mark. Now, like you said, Ron Washington, what kind of factor does he bring? And we saw it here early in the season. After 2 embarrassing losses to the Orioles, he held a team meeting. They go and run 4 straight wins off, right? And part of that was part of the Marlins, but at the same time, they beat the Orioles and they beat them fairly. And I think this team, the importance of this season in particular for this team is make sure that Nolan Schanuel, Chase Silseth, Zach Neto, Logan O'Hoppe, Reed Detmers fully establish themselves as Major League Baseball players and full-time impactful players. And if you can get that, as well as a combined almost 300 games of Mike Trout and Anthony Rendon, almost 150 games each of both of those guys, then I think you can call it a success no matter what your record is, because you got healthy and you grew as a team. I think if that also happens, I think you have a chance of being near a 500 team. Now, I think you have to, I say this every year, you have to win some games that you shouldn't, and you can't lose games that you should win. So it's such an easy cop out to say it, but it's true. Say there are 10 coin flip games, you have to win the majority of those, and that's what might put them over 500. But I think if they finish above 500, it's a huge win for this club and this organization. It's a big year for them. Their general manager is in a contract year, and a lot of their staff is trying to figure out, what is the future. And you're seeing the future, and it starts in Rocket City again with Ohapi, Neto, Seanwell, Silseth, and others, and Kahanowitz and Rada. And that future is going to be a little bit of the focus this year for me and for others. Is can the Angels develop at the major league level, get these guys to establish themselves a little bit more, and if that's going to be the thing that puts you over 500, then it's a double victory.
Well, I'm definitely looking forward to it. I believe our home opener is Friday, I believe. So they're playing the Birmingham Barons. So super excited. Finally, just plug some of your work. Where can people find your work throughout this season?
Yeah, I'm on X, Twitter, whichever one it is, whatever you call it, at Taylor Blake Ward. You can follow us at the Sporting Tribune. Great setup over here in California. We covered Las Vegas, San Diego, Hawaii, all the California sports teams, soccer, etc., the works, wrestling, I think they even do. So we have a lot of fun with that. Baseball America, obviously you can purchase a Baseball America handbook. Was a big part of the Angels chapter on that end. And I wrote a book. If you're interested, it's about the life of Bobby Fontaine, who was a longtime scout, signed players such as Tony Gwynn, Randy Johnson, Jim Abbott. So very interesting book that's called In Search of Millionaires, The Life of a Baseball Gypsy. I should know that off the top of my mind, right? In Search of Millionaires, Life of a Baseball Gypsy. You can find it on Amazon. And always a pleasure, man. I love it out there. And it's a beautiful place down in Huntsville in that area. And Rocket City is a really fun organization and really fun affiliate to not only monitor, but great staff over there as well. And I really enjoy them. So always a pleasure coming on and chatting with you. And if you feel the need and want to, I'm more than welcome to have you come and join along with my little story as well.
Absolutely. I love that. Well, thank you so much, for taking time out of your day to speak with me. I greatly appreciate it, and I definitely learned a lot. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Pleasure is mine, man. Thank you.
Yeah.